The silver buggy powered hard in an attempt to climb a narrow, muddy, and slippery trench, but because the angle was too steep, the front end suddenly kicked upward and lost all traction. The vehicle reared up, flipped backward, and ended up stuck in the narrow chute. The black buggy tried to accelerate hard to get over the rocky slope, but the two front wheels suddenly lifted high into the air. The vehicle lost all forward momentum, flipped backward, and ended up upside down. The red buggy roared as it tried to power through the narrow, muddy trench, but while attempting to climb the dirt wall on the right to get around the turn, the vehicle lost balance. The front end lifted slightly and the buggy rolled over to the left, ending up tilted on its side against the wall. The black buggy with yellow stripes accelerated up a steep rock face. But because the slope was too steep and the vehicle lost traction, it reared straight up at a 90-degree angle, flipped backward, rolled down into a deep dirt pit, and came to rest upside down. The buggy charged at very high speed from the rocky ground up a narrow slope in the forest. As soon as it hit the incline, the vehicle bounced hard, lost control, slammed straight into a large tree trunk beside the trail, and tipped heavily onto one side. The buggy blasted over a high dirt ridge and launched into the air. Because of the extreme momentum, the front end slammed into the ground. The vehicle rolled over and then came to rest on its side. The green and pink buggy accelerated rapidly and hurtled up the steep rocky slope. But as it attempted to navigate a high rock ledge, the front of the vehicle suddenly shot up and the buggy flipped over completely, plummeting to the bottom of the slope. The buggy hit the throttle hard and charged up the rocky dirt slope in the forest, but just before reaching the top, the vehicle was suddenly thrown off balance, tipped sideways, and rolled several times down the hill. The buggy cleared a large dirt ridge and then accelerated hard up the tall slope ahead. It then crashed heavily into the dirt pit and came to a stop upside down. The orange and black camo buggy lost momentum while climbing the steep rock face, reared up to a 90-degree angle, then flipped backward and came down at the bottom of the slope upside down. The dirt orange buggy was climbing over a stack of large rocks, but just as the front wheels made it over the top, the vehicle lost balance, reared straight up, flipped backward, and came to a stop upside down. The red buggy was climbing a steep rocky slope when suddenly its front end shot up, flipping over and crashing violently onto the ground, ending up upside down on a rocky ledge. The buggy cleared the horizontal log and then climbed onto the large rock pile in the muddy pit. But just as the front wheels reached the top of the rock, the vehicle suddenly reared straight up to a 90-degree angle. It lost balance, flipped backward in a full rollover, and crashed back into the mud pit upside down with its undercarriage exposed. The buggy built up momentum and hit the throttle hard to climb the steep rocky dirt slope in the forest. But when it reached the narrow, steeper section, it lost support and balance, then flipped backward down into the slope. The buggy accelerated up a steep, sandy dirt slope, But as it cleared the rock ledge at the top, the vehicle lost balance, tumbled through several airborne rolls, then crashed all the way down to the bottom of the hill, even losing a wheel in the process. The red and black camo buggy powered hard up the winding rocky dirt slope in the forest. But near the top it struck a large rock, lost balance, rolled over, and ended up stuck on the hillside on its side. The buggy powered hard up a steep, rocky dirt slope, but while trying to get over the rock ledge at the top, it suddenly lost traction and flipped backward. The vehicle slammed hard into the ground and came to rest upside down. The buggy powered hard up the steep dirt slope, but just before reaching the top, it lost traction and flipped backward. The roof slammed hard into the hillside, and the vehicle then slid down upside down. The buggy powered hard up a steep, rocky dirt slope, but while trying to get over the rock ledge at the top, it suddenly lost traction and flipped backward. The vehicle slammed hard into the ground and came to rest upside down. The buggy accelerated rapidly and sped up a rough, rocky slope. But near the top, the incline was too steep, causing the vehicle to flip over and roll several times down to the foot of the hill, sending dust flying everywhere. The gray buggy accelerated hard up the steep, rocky dirt slope. But because the incline was so severe, the front end shot straight up, the vehicle flipped backward and then slid down upside down. The buggy's engine roared as it powered hard up the steep, rocky dirt slope. But when the front wheels struck a large boulder, the vehicle immediately lost momentum, rolled backward, and came to a stop upside down with its undercarriage exposed on the hillside. The black and red buggy accelerated hard up the rocky dirt slope, but near the top, it suddenly lost momentum and tumbled several times backward down the hill. The buggy built up speed from the flat ground, rushed across the small stream, and then charged up the steep red dirt slope. But the incline was too steep, causing the vehicle to flip backward, roll down to the bottom of the hill, and crash back into the creek bed. The buggy hit the throttle hard and charged up the slippery, muddy slope. But while trying to climb over a rock ledge halfway up the front end, suddenly lifted the vehicle, flipped backward, and then slid down the hill upside down. The red steel frame buggy powered up a steep, rocky dirt slope in the middle of the forest. But just before reaching the top, it lost traction, flipped backward, and ended up stuck upside down against a tree trunk. The white buggy dropped into an extremely narrow and deep, muddy trench. As it tried to climb straight up, the front end shot straight upward, the vehicle flipped backward and became tightly wedged between the two sides of the slope. The white frame buggy charged hard up the slope, but the suspension compressed heavily after hitting a large rock. The rebound launched the front end into the air, causing the vehicle to flip backward and crash into a tree stump. The orange and silver buggy accelerated up the slippery, muddy slope, but when it tried to get over the steep rock ledge at the top, it lost momentum, reared straight up at a 90-degree angle, then flipped backward and ended up upside down at the bottom of the hill. The bare steel frame buggy built up momentum and accelerated up the rough red dirt slope, but just as it reached the top, it suddenly hit a high dirt and rock ledge, causing the rear end to lift, strike a tree trunk, lose balance, flip backward, and end up completely upside down. The red buggy hit the gas and powered up the treacherous dirt slope in the forest. But while trying to climb over the steep embankment, it lost momentum, flipped backward in a full roll, and ended up completely upside down. The dark blue buggy powered hard up the barren, rocky gravel slope. But when it hit a steep rock face, the front wheels were thrown high into the air, causing the vehicle to lose momentum, flip backward over a tree by the roadside, and tumble down the hillside. The black buggy charged hard up the dangerous red dirt slope, but when it hit the steep rock ledge at the top, the front end shot straight up. The vehicle lost balance, flipped backward, and ended up upside down on the hillside. The blue buggy built up speed and charged up the rocky dirt hill. When it reached the vertical rock face near the top, the two front wheels were thrown high into the air in a near backflip position, but the vehicle managed to keep its balance. The black steel frame buggy with red rims struggled to climb the steep, rocky gravel slope. But just before reaching the top, the front wheels lost traction, causing the vehicle to flip backward and end up completely upside down on the hillside. The blue buggy lost control while descending the dirt slope, tipped over and slid down the steep, rocky hillside. It then slammed violently into two large tree trunks along the way before finally coming to a stop upside down. The orange buggy number 01 hit the gas and charged up the vertical rock face. Just as it reached the top, it lost momentum and was thrown backward, flipping 1.5 times before landing back on all four wheels. The black buggy with the words 90 proof on it accelerated hard up a steep rock face. But because the incline was too steep, the vehicle reared up, flipped backward, and landed back on all four wheels beside a tree stump. The bright pink buggy tried to accelerate up a muddy, slippery slope, but halfway up it lost momentum, flipped backward, and rolled all the way down to the bottom of the hill. The black buggy with pink accents started from the muddy pit and accelerated up a steep hill, but just before reaching the top, it lost momentum and slid backward. Then it hit a rocky dirt ledge, flipped backward in a full roll, and came to a stop. The black buggy powered up the slippery dirt slope, but halfway up, it lost momentum, suddenly hit a dirt ledge, reared straight up, flipped backward, and rolled down the hill. The gleaming green buggy sped across the gravel and then accelerated hard to climb the steep cliff. As it climbed higher, the left rear wheel suddenly broke and rolled into the water below, but the vehicle continued to try and move forward. The blue and black steel frame buggy powered hard up a steep and treacherous rock face. However, just before reaching the top, it completely lost momentum, flipped backward, and ended up fully overturned. The pink and black buggy powered hard up the rough dirt slope, but just before reaching the top, it suddenly hit a large dirt ledge, flipped backward, and overturned onto the hillside. The green buggy with yellow rims sped up the steep slope, but just before reaching the top, it crashed into a large rock and slid backward. The buggy powered hard up a steep and treacherous dirt slope between the trees, but just before reaching the top, it completely lost momentum, slid backward, and got stuck against a tree trunk. The red buggy powered through the muddy section and tried to climb the steep dirt embankment, but when the front wheels rose over a high rock ledge, the vehicle lost its balance, flipped backward, and ended up upside down right beside a tree trunk. The purple buggy was trying to make its way through a trail filled with mud, dirt, and large rocks to climb the hill. But as it tried to push over a big rock ledge on the slope, the vehicle lost balance, tipped heavily, and ended up overturned on its side against the rock wall. The green buggy sped up the dirt slope, crashed into a large rock, bounced violently, flipped over, and landed upside down in the middle of the hillside. The red and yellow buggy accelerated up the steep rock face, but near the top it was suddenly thrown over, flipped upside down, and slid all the way down into the water channel below. The white and green buggy accelerated through the water and charged up the steep rock face, but halfway up it lost momentum, slid backward, and flipped onto its roof. The black and yellow buggy accelerated up the dirt slope, but because the incline was too steep, it was thrown backward, flipped dramatically, and landed upside down. The orange and black buggy accelerated up the dirt slope, but after hitting a large rock ledge, it rolled over, tumbled, then slid sideways and ended up upside down on the treacherous hillside. The white frame buggy hit the throttle hard and tried to charge up the steep rock face. However, just as it climbed higher, it lost momentum and flipped backward in a full rollover, ending up upside down. The dark gray steel frame buggy hit the throttle hard and accelerated up a steep dirt hill. But as it climbed higher, the vehicle suddenly flipped upside down with its wheels in the air, then slid backward all the way down to the bottom of the slope. The yellow buggy pushed hard to climb the steep sand dune. However, just before reaching a certain height, it lost momentum, reared straight up, flipped over once, back down the slope, and ended up upside down.